Don't move, your legs can't handle this. The voice was sharp, almost angry, but Daniel kept going. One step, then another. His knees threatened to buckle, his arms trembled, but he refused to stop. In the corner of his eye, he saw Gloria's tearful smile and his father's stunned silence. This boy had never walked a day, now defying 17 years of certainty. But how did it come to this moment? And why was a black nurse the only one who believed in him? This is the story of breaking limits and shattering prejudice. Comment your city below. Daniel Whitmore's world had been confined to the same four walls for 17 years. Daniel, the son of one of the state's most celebrated heart surgeons, lived in a sprawling home with endless hallways he had never walked. Born with a rare neuromuscular disorder, his legs had never carried him more than a few shaky steps, even with braces. Doctors, many of them his father's closest colleagues, had all said the same thing. He'll never walk. It wasn't that Daniel's life was void of comfort. He had private tutors, top-tier medical care, and the latest mobility technology. Yet, there was a quiet loneliness to his days. His wheelchair rolled through polished marble floors, past windows framing gardens he'd never entered. From the outside, the Whitmores looked perfect, successful, untouchable. But inside, Daniel's life was still ruled by the limits others had placed on him before he could speak. Then came the day his father hired a new home nurse. Her name was Gloria Tate, a tall, poised black woman with eyes that seemed to see through walls. Her resume was long, her experience unmatched, but her presence alone stirred subtle tension. Some whispered she was too outspoken, and others questioned why a family of such prestige would choose her. Daniel didn't care. She was the first person who didn't look at him with pity. But Daniel didn't yet know that Gloria had seen too many impossible cases transformed when someone dared to try. She believed Daniel's story wasn't finished, and she was about to test those beliefs against every order from the man who paid her salary. Because behind those mansion walls, a quiet battle was about to begin, one that would pit a determined black nurse against a world that had already decided Daniel's fate. From the first week, Gloria broke the unspoken rule in the Whitmore home. She challenged the doctor. Daniel's father, Dr. Charles Whitmore, insisted the boy's legs were too weak for weight-bearing exercise. "We tried everything years ago," he told her coldly. "You'll waste his energy and cause injury." His tone wasn't just firm, it was final. But Gloria had been a pediatric rehabilitation nurse for 20 years. She'd worked in underfunded clinics, where miracles didn't come from advanced machines, but from relentless human effort. She'd seen children take their first steps long after medical charts declared it impossible. So when Charles left for surgeries, Gloria began introducing small, secret routines, gentle stretches, ankle rotations, resistance bands. She turned therapy into games, coaxing Daniel into pushing just an inch further each day, and Daniel responded. His muscles trembled from the effort, but his eyes lit up with a fire he'd never felt before. For the first time, he started imagining a life outside his wheelchair, yet progress didn't go unnoticed. One afternoon, Dr. Whitmore walked in to find Daniel gripping a walker, sweat dripping down his forehead, Gloria's hand steadying his back. The silence was suffocating. "You're dismissed," Charles said flatly, his voice low but dangerous. "We do not experiment on my son." But Gloria didn't leave. She came back the next morning as if nothing had happened. And that's when the whispers began. Staff members exchanged knowing looks. Old prejudices resurfaced, accusations that Gloria was overstepping or trying to be the hero. The breaking point came when Charles discovered Gloria had taken Daniel outside to the garden. His legs had buckled, and she'd caught him before he hit the ground. But Charles saw it differently. "You could have hurt him," he barked, echoing through the marble halls. "This isn't some charity, case you can fix with stubbornness." That night, Daniel overheard his father on the phone, arranging for Gloria's contract to be terminated. The boy felt panic rising. Gloria had given him more hope in the short weeks she'd been there than all the specialists combined. Losing her felt like losing his future. The next morning, Daniel made a choice. He gripped the side of his bed with trembling arms, determined to show his father he wasn't fragile. Gloria found him moments later, struggling to stand, tears mixing with sweat. "You're stronger than they think," she whispered. But that single act of defiance would trigger a confrontation neither of them could avoid. It happened in the grand living room, a place Daniel usually only passed through. Dr. Whitmore was home early, briefcase in hand, ready to serve Gloria her final notice. But instead of finding her packing, he found his son on his feet. Daniel's legs shook violently, his knuckles white as he gripped the walker. Gloria stood beside him, her hands hovering but not holding. "Sit down before you hurt yourself," Charles ordered, his voice sharp. "No," Daniel said. Just one word, but one he'd never dared to speak to his father before. Then, with a deep breath, he took a step. It was clumsy. His right knee buckled, but he caught himself. Another step. Gloria's face was wet with silent tears. Charles stood frozen. The man who had performed hundreds of life-saving surgeries, suddenly powerless in his own home. "Your own chart said he'd never walk," Gloria said softly. "But sometimes the problem isn't the patient. It's the belief." Daniel took one final step before collapsing into Gloria's arms, breathless but smiling. The silence afterward was heavier than any argument. For the first time, Charles couldn't hide behind his expertise or his pride. What he'd just witnessed shattered years of certainty. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. Gloria didn't leave that day. She stayed. And Daniel's progress was slow, sometimes painful, but unstoppable over the following months. He went from 3 shaky steps to walking the length of the garden, his walker replaced by a simple cane. Charles never apologized in words, but his actions spoke, scheduling fewer surgeries to be home for Daniel's therapy sessions, asking Gloria for advice instead of giving orders. Pride gave way to humility, and the surgeon who once believed in only science began to think in something more complex to measure: human will. For Daniel, walking wasn't just about movement. It was about breaking a lifetime of ceilings others had placed over him. For Gloria, it was proof that the impossible isn't decided in medical journals or whispered prejudices, but in the quiet moments when someone refuses to give up. But there was something else, an unspoken truth that lingered. Gloria had faced not just professional doubt, but the kind of skepticism that came from being a black woman in a house that had never truly welcomed her. She changed Daniel's body and the air in that home. Because sometimes courage isn't loud. Steady hands, patient steps, and a strong belief force the world to catch up. How many more Daniels are out there waiting for someone to see them not as a diagnosis, but as a possibility? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.